Welcome back to another episode of the Bear Trap on the Boomer Bust channel, a Bears podcast by a Bears fan. I'm your host, Terry, and today talking about the prospects for the 22 draft that I want the Bears to go after. And so looking at the Bears and our picks for this year, obviously after trading Mac, we added a little bit of capital, but we have 2 second-round picks not too far from each other. I forgot the exact number. But our first pick is in our original position, which is 7 overall. And then the next pick from the Chargers is 48, so 9 picks down. And then we have a 3rd round pick, no 4th round, 2 fifths, and a 6th. So clearly, no 1st round is the thing that stands out. I think we're in an interesting place. The thing that makes me hesitate is obviously this is Ryan Poles' first draft. So I don't know exactly his philosophy or anything like that. But I would say, looking at any team average, or if I'm looking at any average team, I should say, this would be a scenario in which I would expect a trade. I think most teams, again, this is where you would see them try to make a move. You don't have a 1st round pick, plus you got 2 second-round picks, and you got a 3rd, no 4th. So again, for me, 1 through 4 is the value rounds. Not that you can't get anything after that, but 1 through 4 is the value rounds. And so I don't know. I can see a move back. I can see a move up. This is kind of what we've typically seen. So that I don't know though, because Ryan Poles, he might stay pat. It's a very middle of the road situation, because this is a situation where you could sit tight, get whatever quality falls to the 2nd round with that 1st pick, and then turn around not too many picks later and complement it, and then wait your turn in the 3rd round and make a move, or make a move up in the 3rd round, whatever you want to do. So they could sit tight. If it's me, again, I could go both ways with the scenario, but that's just the pick side. The other side of it is the actual players. And so if you looked at the draft guide that I put out yesterday, I talked about, or actually put it out this morning, but I recorded yesterday. I talked about the 2 different games. There's building a roster, and then there's the actual draft game. And so the draft game has a lot of factors to it. So yes, looking at the picks, we could say one thing, but it's also the players and what you find valuable, what you don't find, and what the depth is. So, I could see us going either way. I really don't have a strong sense on that. But it'll be interesting to see what Ryan Poles does. I think that'll give us a bit of an idea of kind of what's his philosophy in the draft, and I'm excited to know what that is. I don't personally think that there's any right way. There's some people that try to act like that, and I would just disagree. I don't think there's any quote-unquote right way to be in the draft. And so it's just about making everything complement each other, whether it's the things you do in the draft, free agency, the way you do contracts, all that. You just have to make it complement each other. So we'll see what they end up doing. So as far as the prospects, there's a number of people that I would say I would be happy with us to leave the draft with. And I'm not going to go super deep. I'm really looking more at the 2nd and 3rd round, but you never know. The draft is crazy, so people fall down. And so I would say we might get one of these guys. If we get a 4th round pick, we might get one of them there. It might be a case of us moving up. I don't really care. I don't really care how we do it. I'm just going to say these are the guys that I would be excited if we came away with. And then, when we look at it after it's done, I could say, wow, we got like 3 of these guys. That's great. So, or we got none of them. And that's probably how I'll be looking at the draft. But also, you have to see what the moves are in the time as well. So, and then the other thing I'll say, just as a precursor, look, understand, obviously, we don't know how the draft is going to go. And so this draft especially, again, I talked about this in the draft guide, it's not a top-heavy draft. It's a very depth draft in the terms of there's a lot of players that are kind of close to each other. And so it's going to be a little bit of what flavor you like as a player, and it's going to be a little bit of just what traits, you value the most. And so there's not a whole lot separating these players. And so you see that if you look at the mocks, and again, the mocks don't really mean a whole lot, but it kind of shows you that, because I've seen over the last few days especially, I've seen people with a guy in the 5th round, and I've seen that same guy in the 1st round on another person's mock. And a lot of variance. So some of these guys could go all over. You obviously had the top tier guys, but it really depends on what happens with the quarterbacks and all that. It could really push stuff down. So we'll see how it goes. We have no idea. So just keep that in mind. Anyway, I'm going to start off with receiver. Let me set this up so I can see this list. All right, here we go. So I'm going to start off with receiver. Number 1 for me is John Mechie. John Mechie, to me, is the best receiver in the draft. Off just pure playing the position, not just as a prospect. As a prospect, obviously, you talk about guys with certain abilities. You talk about people with certain potential, all that. I think all things equal, coming out as a college receiver, Mechie is the best out of this group. Very close with Olave and Wilson. So the thing with Mechie, if you don't know, he tore his ACL, and so he's recovering just like Jameson Williams. But his medicals were clean at the draft or at the combine, and he said that he'll be, at least right now, he's targeted to come back in June. So it's not like, it's going to be a long time. On top of that, ACLs aren't what they used to be. We've seen a number of players come back, either at full strength or sometimes a little better. And so I'm not too worried about that. He doesn't have an injury history. Outside of that, I think he might not have the measurables that everybody else has. Now, we don't know because he didn't do the combine. And so I don't think he'll be doing the pro day. And that's honestly a thing. But if you look at the history of the draft, there's a number of players who have fell because of their injury status at the time, but came into the league and were able to do well. And so there's some talk about Mechie in the 2nd, but there's some people talking about him in the 3rd, which I think is just crazy. Now, if it's the injury by itself, then y'all just, okay, whatever. I think y'all would be dumb to let him fall because of that. But if it could get him to the Bears, I wouldn't care. Like I said, and I'm not saying this lightly, you watch his game, and I think he's the best pure receiver. When you're talking about understanding routes, how to set up stuff, how to attack the ball, how to be in space and where to go. He's just one of those guys that are smart. And I do think he can do it both outside in the slot. And so I would be really excited to have a guy like that that's a competitor and that really has high-level technique. And look, people get faster and all that. I don't know if he'll ever be a top-tier athlete, but again, I watch him, and I think he's plenty athletic enough to play. So I'm definitely thinking 2nd round. I'm not thinking trading up or anything, but, if we come away with Mechie, with what we have with Mooney, who also could be a slot in on the outside, but obviously brings you to speed, I think he'd be a great complement and a very secure target for Justin Fields. The other guy out of the receiver group, I would say, is Treylon Burks. Now, again, you talk about the variance here. Treylon Burks started out as everybody's number 1 receiver. Now that's changed. Then he had the combine, which wasn't electric. So now you have that also moving down. There's some people that are looking past that, like, look, this is a great receiver. There's some people that aren't. And so there's a lot of talks of late 1st round. There's some people talking 2nd round. I don't know. Again, this is a guy that I think could potentially go top 10 and just be one of those surprises because the team loves him. But to me, I love him as the best overall receiver as a prospect. And you watch the tape, and I don't see how you deny it. I mean, he came in at, I think, 6'2" and some change, but so, a little over 6'2", still 220 plus, and the way he runs and was able to do and move with the ball out of the backfield. The man, with Tyreek Hill being traded, a lot of people have been talking about the stats about how much he runs in the game pre-snap. And I was saying that about Burks. You watch it, and he's doing all that same stuff. He's the main motion guy. He's doing the jets, the orbits, like the fakes, the pivots. He's doing everything. And so at 220 something, to do all that and be the go-to guy and not be burnt out and play, he played tough through injury sometimes. Like, hey, I was just impressed. Like I said, Treylon Burks, if he falls out of the first round, I don't know if we sit at 7 and get him, but if we do, great. But if not, and we got to go up to get him, I'm fine with that too, because that would be a giant piece for our offense. So that's another guy that I would be super excited that we walked away with. And I'm going to just say this now. If we get David Bell, I'm going nuts, and not in a good way. So moving on. I guess we could look at tight end. I'm not one of those people that have given up on Cole Kmet. I do think he could be pretty solid. But, and again, I don't know at all what Luke Getsy, I don't know if he knows what the system's going to look like. And so I don't know how much we're going to be in 12 personnel. And if we are, I don't know how much we're going to pass out of it. But depending on what we do, there's a couple guys that I wouldn't be mad at. I mean, there's really a handful of guys, but the problem with this is I don't want to spend a second round pick on this. And so while I said I don't care how we get them, I guess that's not true because I like some of these guys, but not all of them are guys that I'm like, yeah, we got to get them right away. So I would say this. You got Deese out of San Jose State, who I really like and is under the radar, and we potentially could get him in the 5th round. But that'd be nice. I think he's a great vertical and a great possession target. And, you don't have to work on him with his blocking. But typically when you bring in 2 tight ends, somebody's more of a blocker. You don't usually have them both out there just running routes. Eagles might have been one of the exceptions with Ertz and Goddard. But I wouldn't mind having him. I love the way he plays. I love the way he goes at it. Jeremy Ruckert out of Ohio State, playing with Justin Fields. I like the connection there, and I just like what he does. He would probably be like my second tier choice. That's a guy that we got to get 3rd round or lower, or I'm not going to feel good about that. And then Cade Otton, who is falling under the radar for a lot of people, or at least that's what it seems like. I would be perfectly happy if we came away with him. I think he's the best tight end overall. And so, again, it's a kind of a pick your flavor thing. So if people don't feel like he's the best, then that's cool for us if we can end up picking him up. Again, I'm okay with Cole Kmet as the lead dog. And I'm, more than fine with him being the primary tight end catcher, especially if we can use him more creatively. But I don't think it would hurt to have another guy as well, especially to my knowledge, we didn't bring back Jimmy Graham. And even if we did, that's just one asset or aspect of him being a red zone guy. So anyway, so offensive line, we got, there's a long list, but I'm thinking, again, not necessarily top tier guys. So number one, this is one that people are going to go back and forth over. But Daniel Falele, I think I've been calling him something else, but Daniel Falele out of Minnesota. A guy that started out as a top 5, and again, just this is based on the media and all the discussions. he seems to be falling a little bit. And to me, I don't think he did anything to fall. I mean, I would say this. He wasn't dominant at the Senior Bowl, but the vast majority of his reps is exactly what you saw on tape. The man is just an absolute wall. I mean, he's 380 something, and look, he can move for that size. Like, he's not a burner or anything, but he can move for that size. Now, the obvious issue with him is the weight. So it's going to be like, do we take a chance on a guy who might not be able to manage his weight? At Minnesota, he had to take, I wouldn't say plays off, but he had to be like tag subbed out. And that's one of the first times I seen a lineman that was regularly subbed out. So his conditioning, his weight, that's something you got to think about. But you think about a guy that is newer to football. He came from out of the country, and you look at his size that you can't teach. You look at his movement ability. I mean, you're talking about a top tier right tackle potentially. And so, but you take that with the risk of, can you manage it? I get the sense that he'll go in the second round, but again, I have no idea. And so if he falls to us in the second round, be fine. Now, I've seen some people talking third round. Look, if we got him at 71 and third, I would be jumping for joy. I don't necessarily think that's how that's going to play. But again, I don't really care between the second and third where we get him, because he's tremendous upside talent, even though he's a little bit risky. Sticking with the tackles, I like Abraham Lucas out of Washington State. To me, he's very, I wouldn't say middle of the road. He's very solid. I don't think he has this superstar upside, not superstar, but I don't think he has like an all-pro upside as a right tackle. But I do think he is a solid blend of run and pass blocker that can get it done, and has had a lot of snaps at Washington State, and they pass a lot. So you've seen a lot of pass pro. I think he's got the functional strength and everything. I think he's got solid mechanics. I do think he just needs a polish. This is a guy that needs a pro polish. And I think he would be rock solid for a good long while. And again, I'm not saying that he's going to be a Pro Bowl or anything, but look, at this point, assuming Jenkins is ready to go at left tackle and can be kind of what we want him to be, what we really need is a competent right tackle. And we haven't had that in a long time. And so I don't need someone to necessarily be spectacular. I would have loved to have Lyle Collins come in here, but I think Abraham Lucas is a guy that could be, I mean, like, shoot, you name the middle of the road tackle, the solid tackle that continues to work. I think he could be that for us. And so I really feel like, and again, I don't know the system, so it's hard to say, but just in general in the NFL, you building a roster, I think a solid right tackle is good enough. And especially if you get a man homegrown. So I think that'll be fine. So I'd be excited to have him. As far as the other tackles, it's some that I wouldn't be too upset about, but I wouldn't really say I'm like clamoring for them. I wouldn't say I'd be excited if we got them. As far as the interior, there is a slight possibility. I don't know. I really don't know. Again, this draft's all over the place, and I'm going to keep saying that. Zion Johnson, some people seem to think he's going to go to the second round. And I think is a very real possibility, depending on what the quarterbacks do. If the quarterbacks, even three of them, creep up to places we didn't think they would be, we could see that ripple effect, because that's going to push a corner down, and it's a really good corner class. That's going to push a pass rusher down. And so you definitely going to have the interior O-line get pushed back. So if Zion Johnson does, for some reason, go to the second round, of course I would like to have him, but he's more of an out of reach prospect in my mind. One of the guys that I think, I don't know, at this point, I think he's rising, which is good for him, bad for us. But I liked him this whole process is Jamari Sailor. I don't know how to say his last name, out of Georgia. He played left tackle for Georgia. Excellent movement skills. Not 100%, at left tackle. Otherwise, they would have, kept him there. But I think he has left tackle size. But he's going to be way better suited inside where there's less space. But he still has excellent movement. And I think he did really well watching him in the Senior Bowl where he was able to get into a pro-style offense. He's pulling on the edge, pulling up to the second level. And again, just watching him in pass protection as a guard is exceptional because he had to do it as a left tackle, and he wasn't horrible at it. The movement wasn't really his problem at left tackle. So when you're talking about picking up a blitz or not blocking multiple people, but moving from multiple targets, which you have to do as a guard, he's going to be excellent at that. And so, but there's some people that are really, really liking him and talking about first round. Now, I will say this. If he goes first round, more than likely Zion Johnson or Keon Green got pushed down. But I don't know. We'll see. But Jamari is the one that I would really think we have a shot at. After that, Donovan West out of Arizona State. I really like him. He's not getting a whole bunch of publicity. He's a center, and I would be really excited to have him. I think, and I'm going to watch some more of his tape, but I was really, kind of knocked out of my socks by what I saw when I watched him the first time. And I was just really curious why he was not getting more publicity than he did. I think he was rock solid as far as being able to be moved off the ball. I mean, actually, I wouldn't even say rock solid. More than that, he was one of the stoutest guys that I saw. And I thought he was great out in screen game and all that stuff. So I get centers don't get a lot of love. But if the Bears, have the information and they can project that he might be a 5th round guy for whatever reason, oh my God, I would be so happy if we came away with him in the 5th round. But again, just looking at the Bears, obviously James Daniels is gone, and I really don't know what he is going to be. Or what he would have been with us. And again, I don't know our scheme, so it's hard to say, but it was disheartening to see how much he struggled at center after being so dominant in college in the Big Ten. And so him going to his natural position and not playing that well was upsetting. I still don't think Cody Whitehair is a good center. And obviously the Bears agreed. They haven't had him there. But Mustaford, we need to upgrade. We don't have Daniels. Whitehair is still there, but I think that interior, really we're looking at not the left tackle. We're looking at the right tackle and one guard, one center. The left tackle spot is spoken for and Cody Whitehair is spoken for. But other than that, we really have to look at what we're going to do. And I get it. I know Lucas Patrick or whoever his name is signed and is supposed to play center, but again, look, we'll see. I'm not overly enthused by that. That's what I'll say. And I think it would be perfectly fine because I think, Donovan West could actually play guard, but I'd be really happy to get him just as another solid player on the interior. And look, there's a number of interior guys, especially interior, that I didn't get to, and who knows, that's a position where you really, especially on the interior, that's a position where you could really find, a diamond in the rough, depending on what's around them. Everybody in football is supported by somebody, but as a guard or a center, you really get elevated by who else is on the offensive line. So not to say that, there won't be some other people that might be good, But of the people I watch, that's who I'm looking at. All right. Pass rusher. Not a great class for me. Deep class, a lot of question marks in this class, but not a super great class. Now, I think Boy Mafe, I don't know. I'm not a big fan of projects at the D-line, but that's me. Obviously, some teams have done it, took a risk and molded them. And of course, I don't know this coaching staff, so I don't know what our ability is to develop a guy. But Boy Mafe is a guy that is really climbing up the charts, and people are talking about first round, but could very possibly be there for us in the second round. I wouldn't hate this. This isn't one of the guys that I'm like jumping up and down for, but I wouldn't hate it if we came away with him, and we really would have to see how this coaching staff could mold this guy into a pro. But some of the guys that I do like, that again I think are in our range, Michael Clemens out of Texas A&M. I don't quite know his value. In my own opinion, I would probably say third round, because he is a guy that I wouldn't say is completely new, but he is a guy you're going to have to refine up and get him to pro level. And so I think a lot of his tools are really good, though. So Michael Clemens I like more so probably in the third round. I wouldn't love that if that was our first pick. And then Drake Jackson, again, another one of those guys where I see some people talking about first round, some people talking about third round. Who knows where his value is? But again, I just don't know. I do not know what people's issue with him is. I really don't. He has all the things that you're asking for. The weird part about him is when I watch, the first thing I notice is he's pretty fast. Usually when you got guys that are slept on at pass rusher, if you're long and like you have the body, then you usually a pretty bad athlete. But he's a good athlete and he has the body, so I don't know. And to me, he also has great technique. So if we get Drake Jackson, I'll be super excited. I think he'll be a great player to add to the team with the right type of motor and mentality, and which I love to see on a team like USC that wasn't really competing for something. And it's easy for some guys to get lazy, but that guy was always on it. So I really enjoy that. I don't know. Some of these guys, I think would be cool, but I wouldn't say I'm like jumping up and down for them. So I'll name a few. Josh Paschal, which is more interior. I think he could be a disruptive 3-tech. I wouldn't hate if we got him, but he's definitely a tweener and somebody that you're going to have to work on as a little more of a project. But man, you watch his film. But that's the thing. We've seen a lot of players go crazy in college that are tweeners. They get to the league and don't really have a place. But I think he's a 3 technique. It seems like we're trying to get a team that's going to penetrate and go upfield. Look, you talk about Ogunjobi. I think this guy could be every bit as better than him. So that's my personal opinion. Sam Williams out of Ole Miss, I think would be interesting to kind of mold. And my boy Nick Bonito out of Oklahoma would be interesting to mold. But again, those aren't guys I'm jumping up and down for. On the interior, Fedarian Mathis is losing some steam, quote unquote, in the draft. Look, that man's a monster. And now you do have to worry about Alabama players. That's one thing I got to catch myself is like I'm always every year watching them. And I'm, man, it's so good. But then you look at the track record in the league and it isn't so great. But I really do think he's got all the tools. I mean, obviously the size, the strength, but he gets off blocks. He's smart, and he's actually a lot more quicker than you think. So I would not be upset if we came away with him, who I think would be a good two-way defensive tackle where you could use him as a 1 or 3 technique depending on the situation. Yeah, I think on the interior, that's pretty much it. Linebacker. And, to go back, D-line, obviously, we're rebuilding that whole thing. I mean, we got Robert Quinn right now. We'll see if we'll keep him. But, yeah, we don't really have much there at all, in my opinion. Obviously, Mack is gone, and we talked about him. But you got Eddie Goldman gone, Akeem Hicks, Bilal Nichols. Like, that whole rotation is kind of gone. So we're completely rebuilding that. But it's not exactly a great year for interior D linemen. The other one, I guess I will say that would be interesting. I would be skeptical. I wouldn't be excited. But if we got DeMarvin Leal out of Texas A&M as well, I would be interested in how we develop him. Now, I think he's a 3-tech. Some people might be treating him like a DN, but I think he's a 3 technique. And I think he could be similar to Chris Jones. Over to linebacker. Now, this is tricky because there's guys I wouldn't mind taking, but also I don't know that any of these linebackers I want in the second round. So it's a little tricky. I think this would be a later pick. If we came away with DeMarco Jackson out of App State, I think that would be pretty interesting. And then Jimmel out of North Carolina, I think he would also be interesting. Now, there's a lot of linebackers I like, but none that I think would necessarily be in our range that I would want to get that early, if that makes sense. So those 2 linebackers I'd be interested in. Corner. Oh, God. If only we could get one of these top guys. But there's really only... no, there's more than 2. There's 3 guys I want to look at. Number 1 is Roger McCreary, who was kind of consensus top 5 corner. Kind of moved back because Kyler Gordon is falling off. But a lot of people seem to think he'll be a second-round pick. And look, McCreary didn't run as fast as everybody else, but look, there's only one tape you got to watch. Put on the tape of him versus Alabama. The tape is labeled McCreary versus Jameson Williams and John Mechie. That's the only thing you got to watch. You watch that tape and you know what he's worth. First, I mean, like, he's a man corner, peer and peer. Strong, balanced, understands man coverage, always creating tight windows, not overly handsy. And look, he didn't get burnt by anybody. He's not a burner, but I don't think I've seen him get burnt. And so I think that's also important to understand. And he's not scared of the run. I mean, I think he's just a great overall man corner. And even if we're more of a cover 2/man, which if you think about what they did in the Coast the last few years, if we do that again, that is kind of the MO, cover 2 and man. So I think he would be excellent. I think he's got the skill sets, all the skill sets that Jalen Johnson has, but he's more athletic than him. And he's probably I take it back. He is a better run defender than Jalen Johnson. So I would absolutely love to have McCreary. I think that's a first-round pick in the second round. I'd be excited about that. The other person would be Jalen Armour-Davis out of Alabama. More of a younger corner that is going to, grow. But, man, he's got all the prerequisites, and not a lot of people are talking about him. So, when you talk about corner, obviously there's straight line speed, but you got to have the hip fluidity, the movement. I think he has all that. I think he has, the profile of a really good number 1 corner. And so I would love to get him anywhere in the second round. If we got him in third, that'd be crazy. I would love that too. But we know since Kyle Fuller left, we haven't actually, even when Kyle Fuller was here, we never really had that second corner. And so Kyle Fuller was kind of shouldering the load. Then we brought in Jalen Johnson and Kyle Fuller left, and then Jalen shouldered the load. We just haven't had two corners at the same time, which is tough when you run cover two, which we ran a lot, or quarters. You got to have that second guy. So I think corner is definitely a priority. So I wouldn't mind Roger McCreary or Jalen Armour-Davis in the second round. Then we got, I guess it's pronounced Tyreek Woolen out of Texas San Antonio. Look, 6'4", 4.2 speed. You could check him out. He's definitely raw. He was on the lower level. So there's a lot of project involved with him. But, man, if we could get him in the third round. Now, I mean, he's definitely could play man. I don't think he's a cover two beat him up man type guy. But, man, I don't know that you could say no to that. 6'4", 4'2", long arms. Yeah, you could really mold him into something. That's the type of talent that you get on a team and you make it work. So I would not be upset with him. And really, I don't know. Somebody might take a shot on him in a second, but really, I think he has more later round projections right now. So, but either way, I'd be fine with that because, again, our second corner spot is going to be important. And we still need a nickel, too, at least one that is, a little better. And then safety, I really don't like this safety group. I seen someone say us getting Lewis Sin out of Georgia, which is possible. He's definitely a first round guy. But, yeah, it really depends on what happens. Again, a couple quarterbacks here and there, he could get pushed to the second round. So, yeah, we have not had the physical opposing force to Eddie Jackson since Amos. And this guy's a great athlete. Plus, he's a hitter. Yeah, I would absolutely be happy to have, Lewis Sin, but Cine or whatever his name is. But I don't know that he'll be there, but that'd be great. But yeah, that's the only safety, honestly, that I've watched that I really even care about. So, all right, so there you are. Obviously, we're going to need a punter at some point, and there's supposed to be a couple good punters, but I'm not really digging that deep. Just kind of going through the main positions and some guys that I would really like to see us come away with in the draft. So, obviously there's a lot of top players, but honestly, there's not a player you could name outside of maybe Sauce Gardner that I would want to trade into the first round for. Like, I don't really think there's a guy that I would go crazy to get, to be honest. So I'm fine with us sitting where we are and getting some quality players. So that's how I feel. Go down in the comment section. Let me know what you think. Share it around. Get the conversation started. Thumbs up, subscribe, and remember, stay up and bear down.